Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to WrestleMania Part 2. Obviously, Day 2 wrapping up. Open the show with Stephanie McMahon. Coming out, I think, a little bit unexpectedly, but people forget, obviously, she's married to Triple H, so she's still involved in that way, no matter if she's on the board or not on the board, or Vince is her dad or not her dad, or whatever the case may be, right? So it doesn't really make any difference. She's involved and she kind of helps them usher in, from the McMahon to the new Triple H era kind of thing, which is funny because he's basically a McMahon, vis-a-vis, grew up in the era and married in and all of that. So really interesting. I like the Drew Seth match. Kind of went the way you thought. Seth was obviously coming in with injuries, a variety of injuries and stuff, on screen, off screen, everything, and then the whole bloodline thing yesterday, which didn't really help. And then obviously he tries to rub it into CM Punk's face, and then CM Punk, eventually retaliates and takes him down, and then Damian Priest cashes in. I honestly thought Damian Priest was going to cash in and then lose, but they did let him have it and let him win and have his moment, and he's at the presser right now doing his "wow, I worked so hard to be the top guy" thing, even though I don't think he realizes Cody's probably that. But interesting though, very interesting. I liked what they did with Drew, and I'm interested to see where that goes. Obviously, they're angling toward a Drew Punk thing with Seth probably taking some time off or something. So seems like the Drew Punk thing is going to continue on here. Um, really interesting. I don't know where they're going to go with Damien and who's going to challenge him. Maybe it's Gunther. Maybe it's somebody else. Obviously, they're trying to make Logan Paul into that guy, but he still has a U.S. strap after winning a really tough match where he did some impressive moves, no doubt, against Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, who did their best to really prop him up and make him look great. And they did that, and he did it for himself, too, with executing some really good and tough moves, especially the aerial moves that he did. And that was a great match because you had two real pros like Owens and Orton in it, and then obviously you had some interesting stuff going on with the Prime drink. And as soon as, of course, you see a guy in a Prime costume, you're like, oh, that guy's going to come into play later. And then, of course, it did. And that guy ended up getting RKO'd onto a table. Not through a table because he's too small. So I forget the influencer's name, who that was trying to help out Logan Paul in the Prime costume, but it didn't work. But Logan did win, not probably because of that, but because he took advantage of an RKO that Orton delivered to Owens, and then accompanied it with a nice splash off the top rope to get the legitimate 1-2-3. So you can't gripe about that. Worst match of the night was definitely going to be Bayley versus Evo Sky. That match was clunky. A lot of weird sloppiness going on in that match. I'm sure there are nerves when you're out there on the WrestleMania stage, but that match just didn't feel right. The whole Egyptian entrance, I didn't really understand the context of that. Being from San Jose, California, I mean, maybe she's got Egyptian heritage. Maybe that's what they were pointing at. I'm not really sure as far as Bayley goes, but I guess interesting. Kind of a culture clash, I guess, is where they were trying to go with that. So interesting. Yeah. There were some, interesting stuff going on. The Bobby Lashley, the kind of street fight match they had between him and the Street Profits, and obviously AOP and the New Test or the Final Testaments, what they're calling themselves, and Cross with those guys. That was an interesting one. It was entertaining. There was some interesting weaponry and stuff involved in that match, and it was interesting to watch. A lot of good matches there. I was trying to remember all the rest of the matches on the rundown. Let's get to the main event and the interestingness that happened there. We all had our suspicions because there was a truck, while The Rock, I covered this too in my part one. If you haven't seen it, it's on the channel, my part one breakdown from yesterday. That was this, I posted it this morning. But the breakdown last night was obviously on the loading dock. That truck with Cena and The Rock on it was professionally lit. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that was a coincidence or, oh gosh, they just happened to catch those guys in the truck. Obviously, they were hinting at something. You didn't know if it was one or both or what, and it turned out that it was only one, as far as we know, so far, unless in the presser Stone Cold's music hits and Damian Priest gets a stunner or something. So obviously the Bloodline gets involved. First, the match I thought they did a good job of letting the match go basically till it would have went to a natural conclusion where all those guys' work mattered and it wasn't just interference the whole match. But then you do have, right when it looks like Cody has the upper hand at the end of the match, you have Jimmy come in, deliver the super kick, and then try to get Roman, back to his consciousness so that he can, win the match and keep the title. And then, of course, the music hits and it's Jay, and then Jay and Jimmy go. And then there's this really weird sequence where they had these two tables set up that were covered in black cloth. And Jay runs weirdly at Jimmy at this kind of strange angle to try to make sure he hits the tables, and then almost misses them because of the angle that he took. And it was kind of a weird thing where they fly off the side of the ramp as Jimmy runs up to meet him because Roman's like, "We'll take care of that, and I'll take care of Cody." And then he runs up, and then they fly off the ramp together, kind of a weird way. And Roman's kind of looking at him like, "What the hell?" And then he turns around, and him and Cody go at it again. Then they go outside and go through a barrier again, and then a bunch of other stuff happens where they're kind of fighting back and forth, and tables are involved and clearing off the announce tables, which happened several times throughout WrestleMania. And then eventually the tables do end up going down in different ways as Cody looks like he has the upper hand on Roman again for a second time. Solo comes out and spikes him. Cody miraculously kicks out. Solo turns around again and messes up Cody again. I forget. I don't think it was a spike. It was something else. Maybe it was a spike. I don't remember the second time. And then Cody somehow kicks out of that, or he just positions him the second time so that Roman can spear him, and then somehow Cody kicks out of that. So it's kind of like this destiny thing where you're like, oh my god, he can't beat him, kind of thing going on. And but as Solo's doing that, the second time, Cena's music hits and John Cena runs down. I don't know why. I don't know what he has to do with any of this other than the fact that he was on that stupid truck. But somehow John Cena needs to be involved in this. So John Cena runs down and basically FUs Solo or he FUs Roman to like even the odds. And then he goes out and FUs Solo through the announce table. After he does that, The Rock's music hits, and The Rock comes down, and him and Cena go face to face, just like when they fought each other at back-to-back WrestleManias, and The Rock's wearing his, final boss gear, and Cena's still wearing his never give up gear, and they look at each other, and then Cena goes to swing at The Rock. The Rock bottoms right in the middle of the ring and tells him to get the fuck back to the locker room, and that he doesn't want to see him again, shit like that. And then, you're all expecting the glass to shatter and for Stone Cold to come out, and sure enough, it's not Stone Cold. The lights go out, and we get the gong of The Undertaker, and The Undertaker appears behind The Rock, choke slams The Rock, the lights go out again, and then The Undertaker's gone, and then Cody hits the triple crossroads again on Roman to finally win the match. I might have gotten it a little bit out of sorts as far as the order of all those things, but that was basically what happened. So Cody does win. He gets his family in the ring afterwards, asks Bruce Pritchard and Triple H to come out and thanks them. Obviously, Dustin is under contract with AEW, so he couldn't really say much to Dustin, a.k.a. Goldust, who's his actual older brother, and all of that. But Brandy was there, which is funny because I actually made the graphic you see before this, having anticipated that she would be there, but I didn't know if we'd actually get to see her or not. But obviously, the Bloodline reign of terror is at least semi-over, depending on what they choose to do after this. Maybe they'll reinvent it without Roman somehow, or I would imagine he's going to take some time off here to probably treat himself and all of those different things from leukemia and all the things he has going on. Seth, I would imagine, is going to be off for injury reasons. I'm sure he still has some time to recover that leg and just power through to get through WrestleMania, especially because CM Punk was already down, so they already had one main eventer that was out. And now with Punk coming back and elevating Gunther and elevating Sammy to that spot that Gunther was in and all of these things, maybe now seems like they're trying to elevate Logan. And of course, they do still have main event players like LA Knight, who beat AJ, and that was another match that happened. It was actually a pretty solid match. The Dark AJ thing is weird because AJ just doesn't have the personality to be a heel. So when he tries to be a heel, he still tries to get the crowd like he would be a face because he almost doesn't know how to be a heel. So it's kind of funny because he's such a good guy that he almost doesn't know how to do it. So it's kind of interesting to watch. But of course, AJ's always nice to watch in the ring because he's just a really talented guy in the ring, no matter what. So But obviously, AJ, Randy Orton, all these guys, Kevin Owens are all around, so they can all be main event players at any given moment if they needed them to. We'll see what happens with all that. But overall, the 2 days of WrestleMania, I thought day one, outside of the main event, was kind of underwhelming. Day two, I thought delivered, except for the Bayley match. I thought they delivered pretty much across the board on day two. So I'm really glad that it worked out that way. I wish it had been a little bit more balanced, but that's okay. I mean, they can't all be amazing, but greatest WrestleMania of all time. I don't know that that's really something that I would consider this. There's been a lot of really good WrestleManias, but it certainly is, it's definitely above average. You know what I mean? Like they did some really interesting things. The whole Rock becoming part of the bloodline and stuff did make it really interesting and unique. And I think it does rank toward the top of WrestleManias. I don't know if it's the best ever. Having The Undertaker and Cena come out, I guess in some way gives you some notoriety, but the Cena thing I didn't really understand because he really had no place in this. And they're like, oh, well, Solo's really the one that took him out. And you're like, I guess, but that was so long ago. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. And that was, I don't know. It's just kind of weird that Cena came in there, and then obviously The Undertaker. I wonder if they were supposed to get Austin, and then he canceled or couldn't do it for some reason, and so they got The Undertaker to do it instead. But obviously Undertaker had been all over the place the whole weekend, and I thought because of how much time was left when they started the match that we could possibly be getting Undertaker Sting at the end. Didn't happen, but Undertaker did pop and show up. So I wonder if Sting and Taker are going to train for a year, and then maybe WrestleMania 41 possibly we get that. Maybe we'll never get it. I don't know. And I know they're both getting up there further and further in years where it's almost impossible. But I think more like a boneyard match where it's pre-recorded and you could still make it entertaining for fans without getting these guys hurt even in their older ages. Because obviously with their costumes and stuff, you could make them look however you want. And I'm sure they both want that final send off on a high note, But we'll see. I know Sting had a good retirement in AEW, but it's also AEW, and I know he doesn't see it that way. But I mean, you kind of want to have that one final match on the grandest stage as opposed to not having it really. But maybe he thinks his Triple H match at WrestleMania was enough and doesn't have that desire. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. But overall, the Triple H era of WrestleMania starts, with a really solid show, especially day two. Extremely solid day two. Really some good matches across the board. Very interested to see where some of these things go. Judgment Day is the most interesting one to me because obviously with Damian Priest holding that title now and really being kind of the least notarized guy in the group, I don't really know where they're going to go with that group. Do people get jealous of him like Finn Balor or JD McDonough or Dom? How does that work? Mommy's still kind of the number one person in that group, even with him winning the title. So we'll see what happens there. Really interested to see where the Drew McIntyre CM Punk thing starts to go from here. Obviously, they can kind of slow play it for a while so that CM Punk doesn't have to get in the ring for another month or two, or maybe even until SummerSlam or whatever. Or maybe they'll do it King of the Ring. Who knows? Depends on, Punk did take his arm brace off and kind of hit Drew with it before Priest cashed in, so we'll see what happens there. But overall, really good show. I thought the commentary was good. I loved Punk on commentary. Snoop was kind of in this weird spot where he was kind of doing the street fight, and then he came out later and did an attendance thing with the Philly cheerleaders and stuff, Philadelphia Eagle cheerleaders, so that was kind of interesting. But hey, Snoop, whatever, let him do whatever he wants. Who cares? He's a big wrestling fan, and I'm sure it draws the rap crowd to a little bit closer to wrestling. So I'm sure that's not a bad thing. So, interesting show. Getting Cena and Taker to come back and do a quick spot is very interesting. We'll see. I know The Rock has a movie that he's shooting within the next couple weeks here for A24 and all that stuff that he talked about called the Smashing Machine with Emily Blunt or something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Let me know what you guys think as far as following, liking, subscribing. Obviously, summing up day two of WrestleMania, it was a really good show. The main event definitely did not disappoint. There was a lot of great things going on between Roman and Cody, and you kind of felt like this is the way that it was going to go. Is that the Bloodline rules would end up somehow helping Cody. Because otherwise, why even introduce them, right? And it's the only way to kind of get rid of the bloodline element that cost him last year in a match like this. So obviously, the bloodline's not going to not be the bloodline, so they're going to interfere. So they had to do something to mitigate that, so that Cody could actually have a chance at winning And I think they ultimately did, a good enough job to where it was all viable and it didn't seem, ill-conceived. And Cody obviously earned it, so nobody thinks anything of that. So I think they did a good job there. With Damian Priest, it's kind of a little bit more, but we'll see where they go with it. It's kind of too early to tell. He did have the briefcase for like a year or so, and he's had some good matches, but nothing on a world title caliber level that you would really think of. Like, I would rather see Drew as champion than Damian Priest, but we'll see what happens. Maybe Drew and Priest will work that out somehow, and then Punk will come back and fight whoever. I don't know. I guess it just depends on how far Punk is in his recovery time and how all that stuff's going to play out as far as the direction of the creative. And Triple H said, he's already got plans kind of all the way up almost until next WrestleMania, and he thinks that people are going to see some good things. And his exact words were, "We're going to keep the core heart of what you see, but with a lot of new, cool, creative elements that you probably haven't seen before." So I love hearing that. I like, obviously he's trying different things. You wouldn't have seen guys like Logan Paul walk in off the street and become a WWE champion and superstar and all that during the Vince McMahon era. Maybe for like one show on a promo or something like at a WrestleMania, but you would have never seen that as a consistent superstar kind of thing. Especially these guys that are kind of more part-time, and I think Logan's taken it pretty seriously, and that's why he's been successful, which is great. That's awesome. There's a lot of guys that have paid their dues that would love to have a spot like that, so you better appreciate it if you get the opportunity, right? So I think all those things are huge and greatly important. I think they really cemented Mommy by beating Becky. I don't know where that leaves Becky. I don't know if she's just going to take some time off now. I know she was ill in the first show, but strep throat usually isn't a long-term thing, but we'll see what happens there. It was kind of cool to see Brandy accompany Cody. I wonder if she's going to be part of that moving forward to kind of, his championship reign and kind of, being there with him. Obviously, Cody's kind of been a solo wolf until, kind of developing Jay and Seth as an ally. But obviously, if Seth's out and Jay might still be there, but Jay's, I don't know how helpful Jay's really going to be. They're trying real hard to make him main event Jay, but you got to have main event skills to be in the main event too. I mean, it's not only promo work, and Jay's not real great at promo work, and he's also not real great in the ring outside of like 2 or 3 moves. So I think he still needs to really work with some guys. Maybe working with Cody as a partner or something would be beneficial for him to kind of learn a little bit. Like Cody had to when he was, part of Legacy and then had to kind of develop on his own. Maybe he can help Jay kind of get to where that main event thing is more of a true moniker. We'll see how they spin this bloodline thing off. Is, are Jimmy and Solo going to be a team now, or how's that going to work? Are all these guys going to take some time off? There's been a lot of reports out there that Jacob Fatu, also known as the Samoan Werewolf, who is maybe the best Uso out of all of them, honestly. I mean, outside of maybe Roman and The Rock, but I mean, maybe better than the Usos, better than Solo. The Samoan Werewolf is very dynamic, powerful, but still quick and lethal. He's a lot like Umaga in a lot of ways. If you remember Umaga, only he's probably a little quicker and smaller than Umaga, but still powerful. So Jacob Fatu would be great to get. Obviously, Zilla has been working a lot with Jake in the Indies, so it could be Zilla and them, which are cousins. Zilla and Jake are cousins within the bloodline of the actual blood, like the actual bloodline, not just the story, right? So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, the bloodline can go a million ways because they have so many members. Tamina and Nia Jax in some ways are also connected to the bloodline, right? So I mean, they've got so many different things they could do if they wanted to continue that in some way. It's like doing NWO, only it's really family. Like they're really all related, so you don't have to make it like you don't have to find somebody to be in it. There's already natural contenders throughout all the ranks of wrestling and guys that are still coming up through the family. There's even more people than that, like coming up through the family that are either Fatus or one branch or another of that family. So we're going to see what happens. Obviously, nice to see the Hall of Fame ceremony, the Slammies, all that stuff did happen this weekend. Overall, I thought it was a really good weekend for WWE, and it shows why they're the #1 promotion, because they just have advanced creative and storylines that are long-lasting, and they have payoffs, and they're really good at that. Even the matches that didn't really hit were still better than average. So, they were still good, but they were more like SmackDown good than they were, like amazing WrestleMania good. But they had enough matches that went over the top that it still paid off, especially Day 2. Day 2, I thought, was a great show. If Day 2 had been WrestleMania by itself, I would have been fine with that. Right? Day 1, you add that, especially the tag match at the end to that, and then it really makes it an above average overall WrestleMania. Toward the top, definitely, of all the WrestleManias. I don't think it's the greatest of all time. That's a tough sell for me personally. I don't think it's the greatest of all time, but they sure gave it their best swing, and they made it, maybe a top 5, top 10, somewhere in there. I think probably top. I would say maybe top 5, maybe like fifth. You know what I mean? Like, but there's been a lot of really great WrestleManias. And there were definitely ones that had better wrestling than this one. There were definitely ones that had as good, if not better, storylines. But this storyline with the Bloodline and Cody, and then having The Rock come in as that extra element, really put it over the top. But some of the under matches on the card probably weigh it down a little bit more than those can elevate it, especially on day one and that one Bayley match on day two. I didn't think those were very good, but that's just my personal opinion. They're still good, or they're still average to good, but they're not as good as other WrestleMania's undercards, right? Think back to Head Shrinkers versus Steiners, right? Stuff like that. WrestleMania 9, WrestleMania 3, all the undercard. The undercard, was Macho Man Ricky Steamboat. That was the undercard, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but no WrestleMania has every single match hit exactly. There's been some that are really close though, and certainly like 25 was really good. There's been some other ones. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, and start to displace which ones had which matches where. But I definitely think this is a great WrestleMania. Not greatest of all time, but it's, even to get in the top 5, 10 is an amazing job. So I think that's great. I would love to see where this continues to go. And thanks for watching, guys. Please, please, please subscribe. If you're on Twitch, you can follow as well, which is a button you can see there. And then to subscribe on YouTube, you can actually just hit the icon that looks like my red face on the bottom of the screen, and that's actually how you can subscribe, although there is an actual subscribe button below the video. But on the actual video surface on the square, there's actually a little red face, and if you just click that, it actually will subscribe you. So let me know if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments on whatever platform you're watching on, and thank you so much for watching. Another WrestleMania in the books. 40 and XL was definitely living up to the title of being extra large. Thanks, guys.